Let's move on to the next story. It's 9 minutes past 5 because businesses will no longer be able to charge you when you use a debit or credit card from tomorrow. The legislation is part of the EU directive banning surcharges. It's designed to save consumers £473 million a year. That's a lot of money. As well as card payments, it'll include paying through the likes of PayPal or Apple Pay. Now, some companies are finding a way around this. Just Eat hit the headline this week when they introduced a new 50p service charge. Cheeky boys. Let's talk to Hertfordshire-based wealth manager Jonathan Davies. Jonathan, very good afternoon to you.
Hi, Rob.
Welcome, Jonathan. Hang on a minute. Didn't realise the EU was giving us this little gift.
Well, it's a gift if you're used to paying credit card charges, and you can continue. If you can use your credit card, then you'll get it a bit cheaper. It just means it's more expensive for everyone else.
So, Just Eat, they've hit the headlines this week where they're going to introduce a new service charge, 50p. Do you think other companies will follow suit? Will that be the way they get around this?
Well, that's actually the first I've heard of that. The primary culprits and the reason why the Which organisation took a super complaint to the authorities a few years ago was because of the airlines. You know, you'd book your tickets and then right at the end you got hammered with another £20 or so of credit card charges. It seems to me that the airlines are not going to just give this money away. So obviously they can't charge for credit cards, so they'll charge in another way. And the obvious way is they'll raise the cost of flights. Some people will win. I think the majority of people will lose. Having said that, though, many companies also will ban credit cards full stop. And again, going back to airlines, one of the insurances, one of the protections against problems happening in the flight is if you pay by credit card. And if they ban credit cards full stop, well, that takes away one of the important protections in life.
Can you really see companies saying we don't? It used to be the case where when plastic first was introduced, John, you have to ask people, do you take plastic? I mean, nowadays we just assume that everyone takes plastic.
I think it's increasingly likely that companies will simply abolish credit cards because they themselves have to pay a charge. It may be a very small charge, but it's a charge nonetheless. And if they can't charge for that service, then they'll say, well, why are we providing it? So, yes, I think it's very likely that many companies will say no more credit cards.
Okay. And this legislation, which kicks in tomorrow, say it's part of an EU directive to ban surcharges designed to save consumers £473 million a year. It may not work, it may work, who knows. When we leave, do we have to go back to charging for credit cards then?
When we leave the EU, our government will propose and set our laws. We don't have to do anything. But if the government of the day thinks it's a good idea, then sure, they'll do so. Similarly, they'll get rid of all the hundreds and thousands and millions of ridiculous regulations that come from unelected bureaucrats in Brussels.
Okay. And Jonathan, as I have you, you're a very experienced wealth manager based in Hertfordshire. Can you explain to me this whole trend of Bitcoin? Because the world has gone Bitcoin crazy. What do I dip in? Do I not dip in? What do we do with Bitcoins?
It is a digital currency which was invented about 10 years ago by the anonymous Satoshi Nakasone. We don't know who he is, but he might be a group of people. 10 years ago, you could buy a Bitcoin for a penny. Now it's something like £12,000. So I would say, as indeed I said to one of your colleagues just a week or so back, at these levels, personally, I wouldn't get involved. But you know what? If a bit like the dot-com crash in the early 2000s, if there was a 90% collapse in the price, yes, personally, I'd probably get involved.
Have you ever seen a Bitcoin?
You can't see it. What you see is a very long hieroglyphic type key code. It can be 50 characters or 20 odd characters. You don't. It's not a physical thing. It's in the cloud. It's in the ether.
See, I don't know. Have you ever noticed, Jonathan, how good, how great a new crispy £50 note smells?
What's one of them? All I would say to you is, long term, whether it's 10 years or 30 years, I can tell you that digital is the way we will be transacting. There's no question about that. Even as something like obtaining a passport, buying a car, registering the title of your house, it'll all be digital, and it'll all be using this technology. So I wouldn't poo-poo it as a fad. Whether or not the currency itself is what we're going to be using, but certainly the technology is something that will transform the way we run our lives in 10, maybe 20 or 30 years.
So you're telling me the age of the wedge of cash, the readies, is on the way out?
Yes, and that actually is less about this technology and more about what central banks like the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, etc., and governments have told us. They have told us that in due course they want to ban cash. They've done it already in India. In Switzerland, you can no longer get a 500 Swiss franc note, and so on. So it is gradually coming, and yes, governments want rid of cash, and it's not because it's cost saving, it's because actually as soon as we go digital at some point in the future, then they'll know everything about you, and that's why governments want to ban cash.
Jonathan, always a pleasure. Thanks, Jonathan Davies, Hertfordshire-based wealth manager.